We do want good months, and we do want people, doing well.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started here with what this is. For some of you, this is a review. For some of you, this might be new information, and what I'm going to tell everybody on, and I'm going to do reminders throughout this, because when I am sharing the screen, I don't get to see everybody. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to see the document. So I will remind everybody that if you have a question, you can go ahead and unmute and ask the question, just like we do in my regular classes. If you ask it, or if you have it and are thinking it, probably at least one other person has the same question. So go ahead and just unmute and ask the question as we go through. Okay. So first question from me to you is a pop quiz. Hint right here on the screen. What is the first document that a client should ever sign?
Duties owed.
Yay. I would have been very disappointed had that been any other answer. Thank you for playing along. Okay, so this is a duties owed. This is what establishes the agency relationship between you and a client. As soon as that agency relationship is established, you owe them all of these duties, and you really need to occasionally reread this document to remind yourself of all of the duties that you owe them. That is one of the things that has come up in this complaint that I am helping my agent respond to. And knowing what these duties are helps you to remember what you need to do for your client and with your client in terms of things like that. So it is that really important at the top of the page, because I recently had the question on it. In Nevada, or right below the duties owed, this form does not constitute a contract for services nor an agreement to pay compensation. Extremely important there. And then you must give it to each party for whom you are acting as an agent, and had this week too, each unrepresented party. So if a buyer is an unrepresented party and wants to purchase a listing that you have, you must present the buyer with a copy of the duties owed before contract. The law says duties owed is provided before contract. So you have to do that. What you would do in an unrepresented situation is the licensee in the transaction, you write the word in here, unrepresented. That's all you do. Okay. I mean, that's not all you do, because you put the client's name in here. This would be the unrepresented buyer or unrepresented seller, so that their name goes in here to show that this is who you are giving it to. You're not giving them a leftover from someone else. The broker, unrepresented. Company, unrepresented. Okay. So that's what you do, and they will also sign down here because they are unrepresented. That is the first document. If you happen to be working with another licensee, not necessarily on a team, but working with another licensee in here that will have access to private information, then the supplemental list of duties will be given to a client or even the unrepresented party. Okay. If you're using a licensed transaction coordinator, their name should be here with their license number. That's just what that is. Okay. Okay. Next document that is required by law to be provided as soon as practicable, but at no point later than contract, is the residential disclosure guide. This is a disclosure about disclosures. We just love this stuff. And there are I think it's still 32 pages of all the potential disclosures that a buyer or seller might receive or might have to complete in there. And they are to get this as soon as practicable. For at least the foreseeable future, This COVID-19 acknowledgement of risk is a document that I want our brokerage to have clients sign. Buyer and seller at the time that they are doing a listing or a buyer interview, or at any point prior to taking them out. If it's a buyer, taking them out to show them property. If it's a seller, prior to them opening their house for others to come see. Okay. And the purpose is to inform them and protect you. Such is the purpose with most disclosures. The wire fraud disclosure, we have it signed both by buyers and sellers. I had agents when I first introduced the wire fraud notification disclosure and said, I want our sellers to sign that. I had agents who would email me and say, why would our sellers sign this? And I said, does your seller completely understand that they are not supposed to be wiring money into escrow? Because I doubt that anybody ever tells them that up front. Because we know what's going on and we know who sends money to escrow, but they don't always know. And so this, if they were to get an email from an escrow officer that says you as the seller need to wire money in, this helps protect you as the agent, because you have told them they're not going to do anything unless they confirm who it is coming from and why they would be wiring money. Okay, we do have our office affiliated business arrangement and marketing service disclosure. And this follows federal law having to do with affiliated business arrangements and the verbiage that the federal law requires in there. And we just signed that, saying basically that we do have affiliated businesses, and our client, buyer or seller, is welcome to go with them for any service needed, but is not required to go with them. And the client can choose anybody else that they want. And then the document that you are going to have the seller complete. As irritating as that might sometimes be, the document you are going to have the seller complete is the seller's real property disclosure form. Under the law, it says that the seller is to complete this form. Me being the really picky type, I consider completed, meaning the seller has marked an answer for every item on here. I don't care what the answer is. I care that they have answered it. Okay. And that they answered this question. It is to your benefit, and I've seen agents actually do it. They will highlight this section right here. Are you aware of any problems or defects? Because that is what the seller is answering. And then your job is to make sure that they have marked something for everything in here, and not no straight down the line. Because they're saying, no, there's nothing wrong with the electrical system, with the plumbing. There's nothing wrong with the sewer, and there's also nothing wrong with the septic tank. Over here, they're saying there's nothing wrong with the garbage disposal, trash compactor, nothing wrong with the central vacuum, if they mark no's all the way down the line. So they really need to answer this question, and your job is to help them understand what they're answering. And down here at the bottom, any yes answers must be fully explained on page 3. I just love when they're answering yes on these things, and then there's nothing on page 3, because I will send that back to have the seller write the explanations on there. So they're doing that. Same thing at the top of this page. Are you aware of any of the following? Are you simply aware of it? And they're answering. And again, any yes explanations are on page 3. Okay. Sellers will initial all pages, sign on page 5. Okay. Do I have any questions at all on any of the disclosures before we actually get into the listing agreement? Nothing. Either I
Kandi,
explained-
can I have the seller fill out the seller's real property form online?
Can you help them?
No, can I have them do it?
Absolutely, you can have them do it.
But I shouldn't do it for them with their
That is correct.
voice. Okay, got it.
So, so you can send it to them to digitally sign and then do a quick Zoom call with them.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yep. And the alternative to that is that you can, if you're not going to do it in advance, or not going to do that, but if you have all of the documents and you're going to go through the listing agreement with them, then you can go through the SRPD with them and note for them what they're asking on there.
Okay.
That answered?
Yes. Also,
Okay.
Shane Beal had a question. He said the residential disclosure guide needs to be signed prior to the listing agreement? Or
Okay,
am I getting that mixed up with the buyer broker?
No, it's one of those things that I used to teach that and then went back to the same class in which I had heard it. I used to always teach duties owed residential disclosure guide. And then I went to the division class, what every licensee should know. And that particular instructor said residential disclosure guide first because the duties owed is one of the disclosures that's in that guide. And so I started teaching that. And yes, Shane is fabulous at coming to my classes and fabulous at listening to what I say. And so he would be the one to catch this. And so then in August, I took that class again because they have different things. It's still division class and will still count for my CE. So I took that class again. And this instructor, who also happens to be a KW broker. Oh, wait, you know her, probably. Janet. She's a broker in Reno.
Oh, Janice Koppel.
Yes.
Yeah, she's my Reno broker. Yeah.
Okay, so Janice was teaching this class, and she was saying, back to what originally was taught to me, that the duties owed is the first document, and so because I trust Janice, I went back to the duties owed being the first document signed. Okay.
Makes sense.
Do we have any other questions?
No, I was just going to say that I realize, you know, to double check, even though I'm the buyer's agent, to double check that all these boxes are checked from the seller's agent.
Thank you for that. And that's a fabulous statement because it is your job as a buyer's agent sorry, I'm trying to text Debbie at the same time I'm doing this. Okay, so trying to, as a buyer's agent, your job should be to look this over to make sure that something is marked everywhere and to make sure that they have explained things before your buyer signs this.
Yeah.
Because the buyer's signature becomes your leverage, especially with listing agents who don't want to do their job. And heaven knows we run across those occasionally, or more often. Anyway, so your job is absolutely to review this real quick. Not necessarily, oh, but wait, they didn't know. No, it is to review this to make sure that there is something marked for everything and yes answers are explained. Now, the biggest mistake and one that you should address with your buyer would be if the seller has marked, no, there's no HOA, no, there's no recurring fee, no, there's none of those things on page 2, number 9. If they do that, your conversation is with the buyer saying, you know, there's an HOA and you know that there's recurring costs because they were noted in the MLS and you have seen it. You know these things. Then my question for you is, if you know these things, Are you okay to sign this with it as it is, or do you want the seller to change it? Because I will ask the listing agent if you want it, not me as the agent. Okay. So that's the conversation with the buyer. And little bit of trivia that I say every time I teach this class. Nevada law does not require the buyer to sign this document. Nevada law, NRS 113, requires that the seller complete it and provide it to the buyer. There is nothing in law that requires the buyer to sign this. So if the seller has left a lot of things blank and you've gone back to the seller and saying, I please correct these before I present it to the buyer so that it's a complete document and it helps protect you and me and your seller, and the listing agent still says, go pound sand, I'm not going to do it. Then you present it incomplete with your buyer and you say, it is incomplete. Nevada law requires that the seller complete it. Do you want to sign this incomplete document? And buyer gets to make that decision. All you have to do is ask the question. There's nothing in law that says how you have to ask the question. So you ask the question, do you want to sign this? And then it will, and when they start asking for it, it will be, I'm sorry, the buyer has declined to sign an incomplete document. So that's how you handle that. Any other questions about any of these? Let's go to the listing agreement. The listing agreement was changed in April of this year. And we got this. Everybody is now using this one. Yay. Let's review this real quickly for what we're going through on this listing agreement. I do recommend that you have a Zoom call or Skype call or whatever it is you want to do with a seller to go through this document before they sign it. You need to explain things to them and you need to get information from them. So we have exclusive right to sell. By the way, this is the only document this brokerage accepts, the ER document. It's the quickest way for you to see whether it is correct or not correct. The other document that could be mistaken for this one is the exclusive agency. And that has a giant EA right here. This office does not accept an EA listing. It is for your protection. I will show you the difference when we get there. It's a minor difference, but it makes a difference between you getting paid and not getting paid. Not so minor. Okay, so exclusive right to sell. I or we, this would be the seller's name on here. Hereby employs and grants. This is Keller Williams Realty Las Vegas. This is not Keller Williams. This is not KWLV. This is Keller Williams Realty Las Vegas. The company name, herein called the broker. The exclusive and irrevocable right commencing on. This is the start date of the agreement. Let's talk about this for a little bit. The start date. Today is the 14th. We go and have an appointment with the seller today, and we're talking to the seller, and the seller says, oh, can we start it on Friday? I don't want it to go, I don't want it to be put out there for everybody because they're not going to use our lingo. They're going to say, I don't want people coming to my house until Friday. If somebody were to say that to me, I would want clarification. When you say you don't want people coming into your house until Friday, does that mean you are okay with them coming into your house on Friday? Because your listing is probably going to be really popular. So I want to clarify. When you say Friday, do you mean you want the horde coming in, or do you want it to start on Saturday? In which case I would put it into the MLS late Friday. But I'm just going to ask that question. So commencing on. If we are commencing on Friday, then I am not, for the sanity of my broker, I am not going to take this listing, put all these things in the into command tomorrow and submit it to my broker tomorrow because I don't have an MLS listing. And my broker needs an MLS listing to be able to review my listing paperwork. Okay, so if that's the date. If they are okay with today, then we're going to start them today. Okay. Had an email go out to agent just this morning. They were talking about the 2 days to get it into the MLS after the agreement is signed. So I want to remind anybody who is used to that 2 days to get it in there that LVR changed the regulations, the MLS changed the regulations a little bit ago, but it is 1 business day. 1 business day, not 2. I just don't want you guys being fined. Okay. Okay, so commencing on, this is our start date and expires 11:59 p.m. Pacific time on, this is our end date. That's how long this contract will be valid. Okay. 2, sell, lease, or exchange the real property located in the city of, this you will put the city, county of, probably Clark, Nevada, APN, on line 7 here. APN means assessor's parcel number. It's also known as assessor's number, also known as parcel number. Where can you get this parcel number? Because you're taking a listing, so you don't have an MLS sheet to look at. Where can you get this parcel number? Pop quiz, somebody unmute and join in.
Tax record.
Tax records. Thank you, Ari. Tax records. You pull it up in the tax records. You can access the tax records from the MLS. So it's not like you have to go to the recorder's site to do that. Okay, APN number. The APN number is the legal address of the property. So the APN number really, really needs to be correct. Up here on the address, commonly known as, if you intersperse numbers, escrow can correct that, but you really need to have the APN number corrected, okay? Commonly known as is the 123 Elm, 456 Maple, whatever it's going to be. Listing price shall be, this is what the seller is going to determine it to be. You can get this information in advance before you prepare this. And I would recommend that if you're having a phone call with the seller and they're telling you that they want $427,000 for their property, that you send an email to confirm everything that you've asked about. These are the following things I want to confirm, 427,000. Get their response. That will protect you. Okay. Because I can say it from personal experience. I do not read most of the things that I sign. I know I'm signing a listing agreement and I will make sure it's ER before I sign it. But there are times when I am signing commission instructions and the agent has a complete wrong document. So I know that sellers and buyers are not reading what they signed. So make sure you confirm it in advance. Listing price shall be with a suggested amount of an earnest money deposit of, you let the seller pick this. Yes, I know, you know the business, you know what's going on. You are so much faster than the seller in trying to decide what they're going to do. But you can also be the one who has a complaint filed against you because you picked a number too low. And if they cancel and they end up with earnest money and they're not happy with that amount, they will file a complaint against you. They just will. So you let them pick it. Give them a range and let them pick it. Okay. The terms that are available, cash, commission, FHA, these are the ones that the owner and the property will qualify for. If the property will not qualify for an FHA or a VA, please don't put those down there for VA and FHA buyers to make an offer only to find out it can't be done. The most common properties that you have to double, triple check now are condos. You as a listing agent, if you allow this a VA or FHA buyer to purchase a property and it gets down to the end and the buyer has spent lots of money during the transaction, only to find out that the property does not qualify for an FHA loan or a VA loan. That falls on the seller, which means that falls on you. Okay. Yes.
How do you find that out? I mean, that's probably obvious, but how do I know?
Now, title reps have a list of qualified properties, FHA, VA qualified property, condo properties. And you can contact your escrow rep, your title rep, not your escrow officer. Your escrow officer is busy doing all the day-to-day stuff. Your title rep is the one who will be able to get that for you.
Okay.
I think you can look them up, but I don't know how old that information is, and the title reps have the newest information. Some lenders also have that information.
So would you call them on any house you're thinking of listing, or basically condos?
Actually, if you can occasionally, if you're taking listings on a regular basis, you can occasionally ask them for that list. It's probably easier for them to email it to you.
Okay.
And or if you have a property that you are considering taking a list, or that you have just taken a listing on, then you can ask them about that property. They may or may not look up the specifics, or they may just send you the list.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. And the determination of condo versus townhouse. Sometimes one tax record says condo, one tax record says townhouse. The lender sees townhouse, and as they get through, the underwriter sees condo. And so sometimes you can't avoid it, but you do everything you can possibly do to avoid that. Okay. Okay. Owner will carry or other. If the property is offered for lease, we're not doing that. The seller does or does not authorize the broker, that would be you on behalf of the broker, to disclose the existence of multiple offers to purchase the property to potential buyers. Seller gets to choose does or does not. Seller gets to initial next to their choice. Okay. We've talked about this before. Is there anybody who wants to talk about the plus and minus of disclosing multiple offers? Or are we all good with that? If somebody wants to talk about it, let me know. Otherwise, we will move on.
I would like to hear about it.
Yeah, I would too. I'm pretty naive about it.
Okay. Okay. Let me ask first, does anybody want to pipe in as to pluses and minuses before I give my opinion? You guys are out there. I just hear what you guys tell me.
I mean, from my perspective, disclosing multiple offers as a representing a buyer or representing a seller, you might discourage potential buyers. If you've told them that you have 3 offers or 4 offers, they might, you know, if an inexperienced agent or agent doesn't feel confident in their client's financing, they might just be like, yeah, this is not going to be the right one. So
that is absolutely a downside. Yes.
But the upside is that, you know, disclosing that it's really competitive, you know, you might get more offers potentially. On the other end.
You might, yeah, they might actually put the most that they are willing to pay at the beginning in their original offer. Yes. You can absolutely encourage a bidding war, if you want to call it that. I'm not fond of that phrase, but yes, you can encourage higher offers from people who know that there are other offers in front of them. Absolutely. So those are the 2 biggest points. You can scare away some buyers, and you can encourage higher money. Some of this, and this would be my conversation with a seller when I'm taking the listing in this thing, is talking to a seller about their motivation for selling, what's going on, all of the things that you should know by the time you're talking about this listing agreement, and finding out, because we know, okay, those of us who are experienced enough to have been through the various markets absolutely know for a fact that there are some sellers for whom price is not the biggest deal. Price is not the bottom line for them. They are selling a house where they raise their family. They are selling a house they love, and they want to sell this to someone else who will raise their family. And they are willing to accept a lower price to give it to someone that they believe is going to love the house the way they do. I have experienced it myself with sellers in a hot market. 12 offers in about a 24-hour period. And they did not pick the highest. They picked the one whose 3-year-old was going to love their 3-year-old's bedroom. So if you know what their high value is, price or love or whatever else it might be, then this would be where you explain it to them and let them make a decision. Questions?
Can we, Kandi, can we disclose the highest offer also?
You mean the amount?
Yes.
Okay. One of the former commissioners who teaches a lot of classes. Okay, let me tell you the law first. The law. There is nothing against the law to disclose the amounts of the offers. There's no violation of law if you disclose amounts, if you have the seller's permission. The former commissioner teaches that he would recommend doing that. And I respectfully disagree with that. Because you know me, as the broker, my job is to help protect you. And if you disclose a highest offer and somebody beats that offer out by $1,000, $5,000, whatever dollars, and you don't give that offer that you disclose the opportunity to do it, you could have a complaint filed against you because it's unfair practices. You're not giving everyone the same information. Okay. By the way, that leads me just to a little side road, which has to do with the escalation clauses. Nevada Realtors Council calls them acceleration clauses, and they're not. They're escalation clauses in a contract. And that is the automatic. Buyer will automatically pay $1,000 more than the highest bid. Well, that has been deemed by the division, and I care about what the division says a lot because that means fines to you or not to you. In that they have deemed this to be unfair trade practices. And so you cannot use this. If you have a seller and you get one with those, you void it in its entirety. You let your seller know there will not be an automatic bidding because nobody knows what everybody else has bid. And so you simply void it. Give me your highest and best. Do not do this automatic escalation because it's not fair to everybody. Okay, so that was a little side note on that. On this one, I just talked to my seller and let my seller decide. On here. That takes us to number 3, the property offer for sale. Anybody who read my broker bits recently, I didn't do them on this Friday because I just didn't have any information to hand out. But the week before, I asked the question, if you are not putting anything in these 2 sections, is because your seller has said and not applicable, or I have nothing in both of them? Or is that because you have not asked your seller? And if you don't ask your seller, how do you know what to put into the MLS? Because a whole lot of people, not our agents, thank goodness, because I have broken them of that habit, but other offices in their purchase agreements for our sellers, and remember, this is our seller we're looking at, on page 2 of the purchase agreement for personal property, they say as per MLS. Well, any of you who've been in my classes before know what I say about this. Number 1, the MLS information is deemed reliable but not guaranteed. And number 2, the MLS is not a part of the contract between the buyer and the seller. However, they do put that as per MLS. So you need to be very sure about what you're putting into the MLS. And the only way for you to be very sure about what you're putting into the MLS is to ask them, are there items that you are willing to include with the price of the house? Are there items which you want specifically excluded from the price of the house? Meaning you're going to take them with you. And you as the agent are going to put these in here as they tell you this. If you are preparing this and you're asking the email, this is definitely one of the things you want to ask for. There is a negotiation tactic that agents use. I used it when I was taking listings with people. Included. Proper items that are included in this. Yeah, well, I'm okay. We'll just go ahead and leave the washer, dryer, refrigerator. I'm going, okay, you're okay with it. Are you also okay with taking it? They go, yeah, whatever the buyer wants. I say, great. Then what I'm going to do in the MLS listing is I'm going to put no in the MLS listing. And then if the buyer is asking you for something like maybe a home warranty, and it's really tight, then we can come back with, we'll leave the washer, dryer, refrigerator, and we're not going to pay for the home warranty. So something that you as the seller are ready to part with anyway, we can negotiate something else that you're not going to part with. And they go, okay. So we know that that's going to be in there, but that's a discussion with them also. If they have something that is going to be excluded, what do we tell them? Anybody?
Well, I think a lot of things, if they can take it out, to take it out before they show it and get it on the market.
That is absolutely correct. Get rid of it today. Remove it today, if at all possible. If not, we will make sure that we're going to put into the public remarks, not agent remarks, into the public remarks that the wall mounts and the television do not stay, or the Ring doorbell system does not stay. Now, we're putting it into the remarks, but remember, that is not a part of the contract. So we're all, my sellers and I, are all going to be on the lookout for what the buyer is asking for, and we're going to write a counteroffer to be very clear about what stays and what does not stay, so that we have it clear up front what stays and what doesn't stay. There's no at the end, wait, I thought it was staying. None of that. Okay. So we make sure we get this done. Okay. Seller intends that the above properties be excluded or included. Seller understands the purchase agreement takes precedent over any intention identified above and will ultimately determine what items are included and excluded in the sale, and that the broker is not responsible for and does not guarantee that the above items will be in the purchase agreement. This is a really important paragraph, and if you haven't read it, read it about 4 more times after class. This is telling the seller, I don't care what we put up here, and I don't care what we put in the MLS. What's in the purchase agreement is what will determine what is legally, what you are legally responsible to leave behind. It's exactly what this says right here. Okay, with the quiet, we're going to move on. Leased or liened items. Following items are leased or subject to a lien in securing payments. Solar power system, alarm system, propane tank, water softener. Most important of these are the solar power system and alarm system. And I say most important in that these are the items that come to me as a dispute between the buyer and the seller. And the agents are then arguing on behalf of their clients, and then they run to me and say, okay, fix it. I'm going, well, okay, this property is about to close and everybody's yelling at each other. I'm not sure what you think I can fix. So it's a matter of solar power system. If you're taking a listing, I'm taking a listing. My seller has solar panels. on their roof. I am going to ask, are they paid for? Are they leased? Well, they're being financed. Great, they're being financed. Do you happen to know if this financing can be transferred, if it's transferable? If not, you better find out now, so that you have this information at the time you're taking the listing. Alarm system. Yes, we have the big fancy alarm system and we want to take it with us. Great. Then we are going to say that you have them and you're going to take it. We're going to put it in here, and you and I are both going to be responsible to catch that on the purchase agreement, so that we're very clear with the buyer what's staying, what's going. Okay. Seller will provide buyer, as part of the purchase agreement, copies of lease documents or other documents obliging or obligating the seller to pay for such leased or liened items. Okay. That has to do with these up here. Page 2. Title insurance. The seller agrees to provide buyer with an owner's policy of title insurance in the amount of the selling price. I don't know if any of you in the class here have had sellers say it to you. I had a few. Wait a minute. Oh, that's because I went through the purchase or the listing agreement with them. So, you know, if you just send it, you may not have had this question, but I did. Title insurance, they're agreeing to do this. Well, wait a minute. I had to pay for title insurance when I bought this house. How come I have to pay for it now? Why doesn't the buyer? For me, my response worked perfect every single time. My response was, yeah, they get you coming and going. And that showed that. They go, they sure do. And I go, yep. Because I know that when they are a buyer, the title insurance that they are paying for is on behalf of their lender. As a seller, they're paying a different kind of title insurance on behalf of the buyer. But for me to say, well, you're paying it for different people all around, it was just easier for me to say, yep, they get you coming and going. And they would just say, yeah, and then we'd move on. Okay. So this is where the difference between an ER listing and an EA listing will mean money for you or no money from you. Oh, wait, did I do this? Yes. Oh no, sorry, we're not there yet. Compensation, if it's a sale, blank percent. This is the total amount of commission that the seller is going to be responsible to pay. 6%, 7%, 8%, whatever it is that the seller is willing to pay. That is the amount that goes in here. It is the gross selling price of the property. If you, as a listing agent, choose to charge your seller with an additional fee, whether you're calling it a broker fee, whether you're calling it a storage fee, whether you're calling it a file fee, whether you're calling it a transaction coordinator fee, does not matter what you call it. If you are charging them an additional fee, you're going to mark and you're going to put in here the amount of money. It's a flat fee amount. Broker moment. If you charge one seller, you charge all sellers. Fair housing, you charge one or all or none. You don't go, well, sure, I'll give it to you here. No, I won't give it to you there. Okay? Cannot do that. I did have an agent who charged all sellers an additional fee and charged no buyers an additional fee. That meets fair housing requirements because sellers and buyers are not protected classes. He did all in this category. He did none in this category. So total percent, if you charge one, that's up to you. The office does not charge one. Seller acknowledges that broker will offer, this is a requirement of the MLS, that you disclose that we as a brokerage will offer out X percent, and this should be an NA, X percent to the cooperating broker who's the procuring cause. Okay. What you put in there is what you put in there. We do have an office policy that says you will offer 3%. We don't hold it because we have agents who offer 2.5% all the time. That is you and your seller. If it's a lease up here, if you put an NA in this amount, in this blank right here, then the rest of them are automatically NA, and you don't need to do it in all of them.
Kandi,
Yeah.
is the flat fee a no-no?
No, the flat fee is not a no-no. We have a whole lot of agents in our office who charge various amounts of a flat fee. Your client, buyer or seller, needs to be given advance notice. For a seller, this is that advance notice that they're being charged whatever percent and a flat fee.
No, I mean, so because we have to treat them the same. So like if you're selling a $90,000 condo, you can't just charge like a flat fee of like, let's say like $2,000 like that.
So if they're selling that, you're charging $2,000, and how much of that $2,000 are you giving out to the other party? On over here, how much are you co-oping out?
$2,000.
So you're doing it for free?
Yeah, so basically $4,000 for.
There we go. Okay, so if you are going to, if in a case like that, you are not charging a percentage, then this would have an NA. And over here, you would put $4,000. Over here would be an NA, and over here you would put $2,000.
So that's not illegal.
That's absolutely legal. You are disclosing here that you would do an or, not an and. You would do NA on a percentage. You would do or $4,000. We're going to offer the broker NA on a percentage and $2,000. That is absolutely legal.
Although in other sale you're gonna charge 6%. That's fine.
Well, yeah, no, you charge whatever you charge, which is why I said 6, 7, or 8. I had brand new agents in a hot market like this who took listings at 7%.
It doesn't violate the fair housing. No.
No, because you are doing this for a $90,000 house. You wouldn't do this for a $900,000 house, would you?
No.
No. So you are basing it on the price of the property, not the people who own it.
Got it. Thanks.
That is your defense for fair housing. It has to do with the price of the property.
Thanks, Kandi.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so here is where we get to the difference between the EA and the ER. Compensation shall be due. Compensation shall be due if the property is sold or leased by the broker or through any other person, including the seller. So if the seller signs the buyer or finds the buyer, you are owed a commission. Everybody understand that? In the EA listing, it's only 2 letters difference. If the property is sold or leased by the broker or through any other person excluding the seller. If the seller finds the buyer from it being on the market, you are out the commission. You are out all of your marketing fee. You are out all of your money. That's why this office does not take EA listings. Okay. So it's due if it's sold or leased through any other person, including the seller, on the above terms or any other price or terms acceptable to the seller. during the above time period, the listing period, okay? So compensation is due if the property is transferred, conveyed, leased, rented, or made unmarketable by a voluntary act of the seller. You can take them to court. Okay. C is important for you to know. C, compensation is due if within, and here's a blank, for a number of calendar days after the final determination of this agreement. So what this paragraph in essence does is it creates a paragraph that says, if you as the seller are planning to cheat me out of my commission, I'm going to make you wait a number of days. That's basically what this paragraph is saying. Okay, so I've seen agents who put 10 calendar days in here. And I think to myself, you're only making your seller wait 10 days to cheat you out of your commission? That's not a long wait at all. My recommendation is a minimum of 180 calendar days. If somebody wants to cheat me out of my money, they're going to have to wait at least 6 months to do it. What it says is, if the property is sold, conveyed, or otherwise transferred to anyone with whom the broker has had negotiations or to whom the property was shown while it was listed with us prior to the final termination. Okay, so they're going to have to wait 180 days. Before you come storming into my office with a, oh, we get a commission, you need to know this exception, because this exception is usually what happens. This section, section C, shall not apply if the seller enters into a valid brokerage listing agreement with another licensed real estate broker after the final termination. So today is Monday. Let's say 6 months ago, we took a listing with a seller and it was due to expire on, well, let's go with September 13th, yesterday. It was set to expire yesterday. On Saturday, an agent brought a buyer into the property, and the buyer really liked the property. It expired yesterday. Today, you see that it's listed with ABC Brokerage. Tomorrow, you get an offer sent from the agent who showed it on Saturday. You are not entitled to do anything with that offer. You are not entitled to do anything, get any commission, because it expired and they signed a valid brokerage agreement with ABC. Everybody with me? The ethical thing to do is to let that buyer's agent know that the listing is no longer yours and there is a new listing, and tell them to look it up. You don't have to go so far as to actually give them the information for ABC. I wouldn't, but you're ethically bound to tell them that it is listed with someone else. Okay, we all there? Okay, so let's put it on the other shoe. ABC took a listing. It expired yesterday. You listed it today. A buyer who saw it on Saturday writes an offer, and this agent is on top of it, double checks the listing and sees that you're the new listing agent, and sends you an offer and says, we saw the property on Saturday and we see you're the new listing agent, so we're sending you this offer. You are entitled to 100% of the commission. Do you put yourself in the other agent's shoes or not? You don't even have to answer. I'm laying it out there. It's a scruples question, yes. I am laying it out there. Would you call the other agent? Would you not call the other agent? Do you just take it and run with it and handle it? Because you are totally entitled to 100% of that commission. Well, your 100% of your side of that commission, okay? Just depends. My question to you would be, what would help you sleep at night? For some agents, they have to let someone else know. for other agents. They're like, nope, this is the contract. I would lose if I'm on the one side. I win when I'm on this side, and I'll take either side and go by the contract. That's absolutely fine. Some of you know this story. I had an agent who had been in my class and knew this and had it happen. She took a listing, and a buyer who had previously seen the property wrote an offer on it. And she came to me and said, oh, what would you do? And I said, well, I've told you in class, do what makes you go to sleep at night. And she said, well, I think I should offer the other agent some commission. And I said, okay, how much do you think you should offer them? And she goes, well, I think I should offer 25%. Now, here is one of those sales techniques that I learned fairly early on, and I practiced it with clients, and occasionally I practice it with my agents, because she said, I think it should be 25%. And I went, no, I didn't say a word. I did not tell her what she should do. If a seller says something to me and I go, I'm not telling the seller what to do either. So I made that face, and she goes, do you think it should be more? I said, no. And she said, well, what would you do? And another sales technique, by the way, I'd probably offer somewhere between 10 and 15 tops. She said, okay, off she goes. An hour later, she comes back in and she is fuming, absolutely fuming. You are not going to believe this. I said, actually, I probably will. Did you offer? And she said, yeah, I offered him 25%. And I said, okay, generous of you. And what was the response? He said he wanted 50, or he's taking me to the board. He's going to file a complaint. And I said, well, he has no leg to file a complaint on. So don't worry about that part. So what do you think you should do now? She says, I'm giving him nothing. And I said, you're going to sleep at night? She said, yeah. I said, I would too. So she was absolutely, she did what she thought she should do and still came out with it. Okay. So this is an important one for you to be able to, for you to remember. Number one, you don't need to go to this depth with doing this. A lot of times I put 180 in here and I say, I take a 6-month listing. I'm doing 6 months on this. They go, okay. Because they really don't care. It doesn't affect them unless they're looking to cheat me. On there. Okay. So in the event of exchange, you can read that paragraph there. E, brokers authorized to cooperate and divide with other brokers the above compensation. We've already noted what it is at the top of the page. Deposit, the broker is authorized to accept on the seller's behalf, and the deposit is going to be held by escrow. You can put that in your template. It's always held by escrow. We do not have a trust account, so it's always held by escrow. Okay. Agency relationship in here. Broker warrants that he holds a valid Nevada real estate license. By the way, just an FYI, I am the managing broker for this office. My license is broker salesperson, BS, not broker, B. The broker owner of this office is Debbie Zoyce. I refuse to become the broker. I remain the broker, the managing broker. Okay. So depending on the circumstances, it may be necessary or appropriate for the designated licensee to act as an agent for both seller and buyer. This is the first notice to a seller that there is a potential for multiple representation. They signed the duties owed saying this same thing. This is, I should say, this is second. They signed the duties owed saying this same thing. There may be a potential for this, okay? And then it has the next paragraph that says basically, as a broker, I'm assigning you, it's an automatic assignment because you're the one taking the listing, but I'm assigning you to represent the seller, and there may be a possibility that one of the other agents in the office represents the buyer, in which case you both have full duties to your own client. There is no conflict of interest. Required disclosures, these are to tell the seller. NRS 113, the seller shall truthfully complete and sign seller's real property disclosure form. If the property has been the subject of construction defect, the seller will sign that form. If the property was built prior to 78, seller shall sign that form, and the seller acknowledges receipt of the residential disclosure guide. The association threw this in, and even though they initial here, they have to actually sign the page for the receipt because that's division. But they're going to initial that they received it. One of my favorite paragraphs here. Seller agrees to save, defend, and hold broker GLVAR. They will eventually change that to LVR, and the MLS harmless from all claims, disputes, litigations, and judgments for all of these wonderful things. And I love that they agree to do this, and they will agree to do it until they don't, in which case they will file all kinds of things. Okay. Fair housing, broker shall offer the property without regard to any of the protected classes, including those in Nevada, which are more classes than federal law. Common interest communities, property is or is not located. You should know before you even fill this out whether it's located in a common interest or has a common interest community in here. And the seller should be able to provide you with the information. At the very least, they will tell you how much they pay and when they pay it. Special assessments. Property is or is not subject to special government assessments such as SID or LID. For information, you can go to amgnv.com and look it up yourself to find out if there's any money owed for an assessment. Special assessments are not always SIDs or LIDs. When I purchased my home, there was a special assessment that had just been attached to it for a 2-year period in order to get the reserves up, and it ended after 2 years. So there are special assessments, and you can go to amgnv.com to do that. Key box, seller does or does not authorize the broker to install a key box, and the seller has the right to know whether it's going to be electric or mechanical, so make sure that those things are marked. Okay. And it explains that the mechanical lockbox and what's going on with that in there. On line 19, seller does or does not authorize the broker to issue 1-day codes to access the electronic key box. You have to get seller's permission, which means you need to let the seller know what they are permitting in this paragraph. So know it and be able to explain it to them. The property is or is not currently occupied by a tenant. If the property is, this would be me. I'd stop right here. We are done. Done. Property cannot be shown until it's sold. So you're going to be hanging on the market and not. So it would be in regular situations, is or is not currently occupied by a tenant, is or is not subject to a management agreement, a property management agreement with somebody who handles the rental. You need to know who that is because you need to contact that manager before you put this on the MLS, because some property management agreements include in that management agreement that company will be paid a 6% commission. Some of them have it. So if they have a property manager, you want to see that management agreement, and that's what you're looking for to find out if they are required to sell their house through the management company. You cannot negotiate with the management company on their behalf because you do not represent them with the management company. So if they have one, you need to let them know, and they have to do their own negotiation. FERPTA declaration is not or is a foreign person subject to FERPTA withholding. They need to disclose that here and on the purchase agreement. Mediation. Everybody agrees to mediate as at GLVAR first before they end up in court. Paragraph on multiple listing service. Go ahead and read that. Marketing and advertising. Go ahead and read that. In the paragraph here, seller acknowledges prospective buyers and sellers are coming to the property and they might take photographs. They might video, they might do something like that, and the seller understands that we have zero ability to control that. I'm glad they put this in here. We do not have control if somebody else takes photographs. So let your seller know that now. And then over here, seller does or does not authorize the broker to commence public marketing and advertising activities. Yes or no? If the seller wants to put in the MLS, they are going to put yes, they authorize you to do public marketing and advertising. That means you can do it everywhere. MLS includes everywhere. Not MLS includes nowhere. We'll get to that one, okay? But they authorize you to do that. Sign, the seller does or does not authorize the broker to install a for sale sign, okay? And if they do not authorize you to commence public marketing, then they cannot authorize you to put a for sale sign in there, because that would be, oh yeah, public marketing. Okay, seller opt-outs. The seller, this is for media, third-party vendors, et cetera, they don't want a commentary section. Here's the part you need to know to talk to your seller about. Number 20 is that we have no control over what third-party vendors do on their third-party website. The choices here, commentary section and an automated estimate section. Zillow will do their Zestimate no matter what the seller marks on here. Once it goes out to the Zillow website, Zillow has control over their website and they will do what they want. That's the important thing you need to let your seller know. "21, this one has to do with 18. The marketing and advertising on 18, if they okay it here, on 21, they have to say that they do not select an office exclusive listing. Says it right here in bold. Seller may not select this option if the seller has authorized marketing and advertising in section 18. So office exclusive basically means be off the market everywhere. All you can do is talk to the agents inside the office. Most of the time, 18 is yes, and this one is no, does not, and they will initial. But something needs to be marked. Use of listing content, read that, Nevada law. This agreement falls under all Nevada law. The entire contract, read that. Partial validity. If a judge finds that part of this listing agreement is invalid, the rest of it remains valid. Attorney's fees, if there's an argument and ends up in court, the loser will pay attorney's fees for both sides. Read it, but that's the essence of it. Damages cap. This is one of the newest things that's in here, and it's really nice. It says, if the broker shall be liable to the seller for any matter arising from this agreement, whether based on action or claim in contract, warranty, et cetera, in there, the maximum aggregate liability of the broker to the seller under this agreement shall not exceed the aggregate commission amount. So for Norrin, in the case of her listing with the $4,000, if the seller were to take the brokerage to court, they would get no more than $4,000. That's what that paragraph means. It's new. They didn't used to have that in there. Warranty of ownership. The seller warrants that they are the sole owner, or they have the authority, the legal authority to sign the document. Foreclosure. You should be somewhat aware of this section, just in case foreclosures start happening from the pandemic that we are in now. Signatures, it says that they can be ink signed, digitally signed, and they can be signed on more than one copy. If you have two sellers who are living apart and not speaking to each other for whatever reason, then you can send the listing agreement, listing agreement with the name A on it. You can send this one with name B on it, and it still counts as a full listing agreement. If you're ever caught in the middle, that would be my recommendation. If the broker, this is my second favorite paragraph on here. If the broker recommends a builder, contractor, escrow company, title company, pest control, all of these other things, or any other person or entity to the seller for any purpose, said recommendation shall be independently investigated and evaluated by the seller, who hereby acknowledges that any decision to enter into any contractual arrangement with any such person or entity recommended by the broker shall be based solely upon the independent investigation, until they come to me and say, well, your agent gave me this name and I went with them and they didn't do a job, so I want your agent to pay for it. Because I do hear that. Default: if the seller materially breaches this listing, sellers in default will be liable to the broker in the amount of the fee. Binding effect: seller's obligation to pay the fee is binding upon the seller and seller's heirs, joint and several. This is if there are multiple sellers, they are jointly and severally responsible for paying. Time is of the essence in every paragraph in there. 1031 exchange: the seller does or does not intend to perform a 1031 exchange. Here's what you need to know about this. If the seller has said to you that this is going to be a part of a 1031 exchange, then they will mark does. And you need to make sure that you find out who their intermediary is. Intermediary is the person who runs the transaction. You need to know who this is, their contact information, and you need to confirm this with them. You then need to note in the MLS that this is part of a 1031 exchange at no additional cost to the buyer. You then need to make sure that that is part of the purchase agreement. And you need to make sure that escrow knows. So you need to tell them, and then you need to remind them 3 more times during the transaction and right before it closes that this is a 1031, so that they send the money to the intermediary and not to the seller. If they accidentally send the money to the seller because you did not tell them that, the seller does not qualify for a 1031 exchange, and I guarantee you, you will end up in court. And not small claims, by the way. Okay. So you need to, and if you panic, then come to me. What you need to find out is your job. Is this or is this not a 1031 exchange? After that, we can handle it. Okay. Pre-printed portion been approved by Greater Las Vegas Association. Please fill out this information. I do not want just the date. And by the way, they added the time. So digital signatures put that time in there, but date. Put in their information. A date and a signature and nothing else is on here. It's like, okay. You can type, put it in there. Broker, please put our information in here. You know it. If you don't know it, learn it fast. Okay. Designated licensee, that's you. Okay, that would be your printed name. Broker signature, that's me. License number 6. If you want to be formal, BS.6. Printed name. Big bold, an exclusive brokerage agreement must be signed by the broker to be valid. If you don't get my signature on it, and the seller wants to walk away, you don't get to shove my signature on there in the morning and then come back to me in the afternoon and say, we want to go after him for his commission. I will say, you're welcome to try it, and I will sit quietly in court. But you're going to fail. Okay. One last thing about Nevada law. Law requires you to provide a copy of all signed documents. And I say that, and I get back from agents, well, they have access to it because they signed it. To which I will say, I sign a lot of things in Transaction Desk, and when I go back to look at it, it's not available to me. Now, that could be because I don't have a file or whatever's in Transaction Desk. I don't know. But I can't go back in and see a copy that I signed. So not so sure, but your responsibility under the law is to provide your clients with copies of all signed documents. However you are going to do this. Okay, do we have any questions? No?
Andy,
Yes.
I have an upcoming listing, but it's still under renovation. If we're gonna sign the contract and it won't be ready till next week, so I can just date it for next week.
Okay, so in that line for the starting date, you can put in there next week's date. They're under contract today. It does not go on the MLS until next week's date. But you get it into command.
Okay. And do I have you sign it right away? Like
Yes,
okay.
because it's not valid and they could walk away from you before I sign it. So I sign it right away, and that makes it a valid document everybody has signed. The date at the top means it's not going into the MLS until that date, and everybody understands that. So you're good with that.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Okay. Any other questions? I thank you all for being here. I know some people have left during this thing, but I thank you all for being here very much. And please let me know, send me emails if you have any questions.
Love it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
So
you so much.
helpful.
Take
I love it.
care.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.